Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Football Transfer Forum warm-up. I can't believe we're here. The Premier League season's finished. The EFL season's finished. We know who's gone up. We know who's gone down. Well, almost. Few little legal wranglings still in the mix. But it's great to have finally got to this position where certainly the domestic season has finished. We know, as with many of these chats, lots of uncertainty about whether that was going to happen or not. So it's absolutely great that we've reached this point. European football, of course, still to happen. There was some last night, some tonight, and a few more weeks of that to go. And we've got a bit of clarity, which is absolutely wonderful. We've got a great session today. The next 90 minutes, as always, I'm sure is going to be lots of fun, loads of information, some great insight, and we've got a really good programme for you over the next 90 minutes. So thanks for everybody that's joining us today. Tony Sharkey, Football Transfer Forum founder. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Ryan. It's a lovely sunny day up here in Newcastle. We've still got two big clubs for sale up here, Newcastle United and Sunderland. So if anyone's watching, obviously the collapse of the Saudi bid was all big news up here. So yeah, but things go on. Finish the season and get started with a new one. I'm obviously busy in the transfer window. It's been a good start, quite frenetic in this first sort of week or so. So yeah, everything's good. Good stuff.
And of course, our sort of regular contributors here again today as well. Guy, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, ticking along.
How are things at Leicester?
Doors are opening for 23s, 18s. First team's obviously gone now on holiday, and we're going in now next. We've done a week's worth of testing, and we're in next week really starting to open the doors up for the new season. So I'm back in on Monday for a bit of coaching and a bit of training.
Fantastic. And obviously, unfortunate for Leicester to miss out on those Champions League places in the end, but really a fantastic season.
Yeah, I think that if anyone would said, you finish 5th and 4th and you're in around the 3rd position for a long period of the season, I think we would have snapped their hands off. So it's been a great season, I think, to end up in Europe with what's gone on as well with the Man City, obviously saga, and I think we've ended up in the Europa League, which is going to be great, and see where that ends up. The next couple of games, that obviously Man United last night and things like that. So exciting! It's an exciting time for the club. We've got a new training ground coming, which has just slightly been delayed because of obviously the COVID. The sister club has gone and got promoted in Belgium, so it's looking like club going real fast paced at the minute. I think the sporting director's going to have to slow it all down a little and just start taking stock of what's happened over the last couple of months.
Fantastic, excellent, great to hear. And as people will see, we've got a couple of really special guests today, which is absolutely brilliant. We really thank them for the time. First of all, I want to introduce Joe Doncourt, who's obviously been an agent for. Joe, how long have you been an agent for now?
I'm not too sure. I think it's going back to 2006. So it's been a little while, to be honest. It feels like a lot longer. So yeah, it's been a while.
And how have you found the last few months? And do you sort of share the optimism in the virtual room of things moving forward now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been strange for everybody, hasn't it? Everything's came to a stop really, and you couldn't really force anything, so you had to let everything sort of play out. I did keep in touch with quite a few clubs and good contacts of mine, but more just for conversations really, because we could all see what was happening. Nothing was going to, everything was up in the air. So until we've sort of steadied and got the games back up and running again, and even then until getting them games finished and done, things is still very slow. But yeah, hopefully we can crack on and see where we go from here,
And Joe, what's your assessment on, now we've got the domestic season out of the way, what's your assessment on how the authorities handled the situation? We were taking polls and we were asking people what they're thinking throughout it, and people generally quite negative towards perhaps how it had been handled. Sort of sitting back in the light of day now, looking back on that situation, has your opinion changed on how the football authorities handled the situation, or did you think they've done a good job overall?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. I mean, obviously, it's a unique situation, isn't it? You know, everybody had the answers. I think they did the best as they possibly could with getting the Premier League back up and running, and the Championship as well, with the clubs who could probably afford the testing.
Yeah.
Obviously, a little bit disappointing for League One and League Two, but I think the conclusions that they came to made sort of sense. So I think there were mistakes made in every walk of life, not just football, with politics, everything else that's gone on as well. So we're just trying to make the best of it. And yeah, hopefully now we can, you know, we've got the seasons coming up again. So it'll be interesting to see really how the market works as well going forward. So yeah, let's see.
Joe, we're going to be hearing a lot more from you throughout the session. But just before I move on, I want to ask you, what's the one thing that you would like to see happen now in terms of the football authorities? What's maybe the one bit of clarity that we haven't got that you would like to see? And I guess from an agent's perspective, you know, sort of linking it to that really.
Well, I think there's been a lot of talk, especially in Europe as well, about knocking down the commissions that agents can earn. And I understand a lot of people, there's a lot of negativity towards agents, and I see that, I read about it all the time. But working as an agent, I think people really have to look at it a bit deeper. A lot of the time, some of the negative things you hear happen, to be truthful, are with the big agencies. It's not the smaller or medium-sized agents who are working really, really hard and trying to do the best for their clients, or looking after the clients and the families as best as they can, only to see those players picked off from them. So I think you have to look at the big picture, really. So I hope the football authorities, when they're looking at agents, look at all agents across the board, because otherwise they're going to end up creating a monopoly of agencies. I just don't think that's going to be good for football a long term.
Yeah. And I guess in the context of where the industry is at the moment, we want to be keeping as many people involved as possible. Really, we don't want to be putting up too many walls. We want to be sort of taking them down. Really, you know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I disagree with FIFA really removing the testing system. I mean, I took the test. It was difficult. I had to study for it. I think allowing anybody just to come in, not stopping families and stuff. I mean, you should have the right to represent your own children, but I think it's just the lack of experience and driving people like Rob crazy. I mean, maybe he had 500 calls before, and now it's gone up to 2,000. So, you know, it's if people want to come into it and they want to work hard, let them have the opportunity. But the testing was important, and let's be honest, there's enough money in FIFA and the FA to regulate these things properly. So it's whether they actually want to.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you with us today, Joan. So look forward to hearing more from you throughout the session. And we're also joined by Rob Scott, Head of Recruitment at Rotherham. Rob, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Morning, everyone. Yeah, busy, as Joe just alluded to. The volume of inquiries and recommendations is a bit silly at the moment, but it's all good. It's sort of picking up a little bit of pace without anything getting across the line just yet.
Absolutely. So obviously Rotherham were one of the clubs that, you know, on one hand you would say benefited from the scenario in terms of how the league season ended, and of course I think in a fair way was determined good enough to finish in that position for automatic promotion. Now I've got to say to you, we obviously had your brother on last time, and I did say to him, were you looking forward to coming up against your brother next season? You know, kind of writing Swansea off for the rest of the season. Of course, they ended up in the playoffs, so I felt pretty bad about that. But maybe good for me, they haven't progressed in the playoffs. So I've got to ask you, are you looking forward to coming up against your brother next season at Swansea?
Yeah, a little bit different now in the scenario that went from the time that we were both obviously in coaching and management. You're a little bit behind the scenes now. You know, if you were to put us on paper against any other club in this league, there's probably a disparity between budgets. We know that. So same goes for Swansea. You know, so yeah, we're looking forward as a football club to being back in the Championship and you know, trying to do our best to stay in the league. That's our aim. This season, our aim is to become an established Championship club. It's not going to be easy, even with everything that's gone on in the world in terms of the COVID and how that's impacted financially everybody. But you know, we've probably crept a little bit closer in terms of not us going more, but other clubs giving less. So you know, there's a little bit of a more closer. That said, you know, the starting points are in context to the size of the football clubs. You know, clubs are. You know, I spoke to a couple of agents this week, and championship clubs offering 40% pay cuts, they're still paying a hell of a lot more than we can ever pay. So it's going to be tough, but we are what we are. We know what sort of football club we are. We know our ethos of the football club and the remit that we have to get football players in here. So, you know, we know exactly how to tackle it and how to take it forward. So we're looking forward to it, whether that be Swansea, whether that be Middlesbrough, whether that be anybody else that's in the league. We'll give it our best shot, and teams won't come here for an easy ride, that's for sure.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, we look forward to sort of getting into it very shortly with you, Rob. But really, really appreciate you being here. It's we're very, very grateful. So this is what today is gonna look like, guys. Obviously, the next chat is going to be with Rob. We're going to be pinning in terms of some of the underlying philosophies and processes that have really drove the success at Rotherham this season. As always, we're going to speak to one of the Football Transfer Forum's partners, and we're going to have Lee on from Player Lens. Really, really interesting offering that those guys have. Then the panel discussion this week is going to be recruitment for promoted clubs. Now, of course, we've seen different clubs take vastly different strategies in recent years. And again, I think we can all agree that we'll see a wide range of strategies moving forward. We're going to be really fortunate enough to speak to Lee Barraclough, Chief Scout Harrogate Town. Obviously, an enormous success for those guys getting promoted to League Two, the first time in the club's history that they're going to be playing in the Football League. And of course, as always, there's going to be plenty of time for questions from you guys. So as always, put your questions in that chat section on the webinar, on the Zoom webinar, and I will get through as many as I possibly can do. So any question on any topic, get it in there, and we'll get through as many as we can. But okay, let's get cracking. Rob, I always like to sort of get a bit of picture of nostalgia. Okay, whatever happened to the manufacturer Bodyline?
I think we finished them off. It was only they were a company that were based in Rotherham, so I think they tried to support local businesses. And Guy will tell you the same. It was a little bit different to today's kits. In fairness, that was us at Rotherham. We just got on with it and accepted whatever we were given, and didn't really sort of make too much of a fuss about it. But it served the purpose, and it was fine. That sort of we had a bit of a tag of being. I think Everton had one at a similar time, like Dogs of War. That was us all over, really. We just got on with it, and that wasn't the best kit we've ever had, but. I don't remember anybody moaning about it too much. Pre-season, when it first came out, I think there was a thing about being revolutionary at the time. It was about this. It didn't get wet. It didn't hold water. It was like.
Listen, I can't listen to him talking like this. The gear was awful.
The gear
was awful.
But then again, Guy did moan about everything. So
I'm sitting here crying here. You're lying. I love that about you, though. You're brilliant at it.
Didn't bother me, mate, in the slightest. The only thing that wasn't the best was the training kit. They had lime green.
It was double layered.
It was double. They had lime.
It was winter for summer and summer for winter.
Lime green t-shirts. And where we used to train at Houghton Roberts, there was the river down by the side. So in the summer, pre-season, lime green t-shirts, you just used to get covered in flies. So,
best thing was if you fell in the water, you didn't die.
Yeah, you did. It was pretty toxic. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Very good. And obviously for yourself, Rob, you played over 330 league games. Half of them were for Rotherham. I think my first question to you is you've obviously managed at a number of clubs, but how good is it back working at, I guess, what you call your club?
Yeah, I've lived here in and around this area since sort of, when I first came up to Sheffield in '93, I had a sabbatical back in Fulham for a couple of years and then came back up here in '98. So I've lived more of my adult life in this area than I have, back where I was born and raised as a kid. So I do like it here. It's a unique club. Again, Guy can speak from experience on that, but you know, it's funny because I have been at other clubs, and you get experiences from other clubs, and you speak to the coaching staff here, and everyone's got issues at whatever club they are. They're just dependent on that club and the size of the club and the size of the issues and the different people that you have, you know, problems or issues with. So it's no different wherever you go. I think we have to accept what we are here. We know what we are here. In terms of the size of our club, the chairman runs it very much on a level footing in terms of a business model. And I think, if I'm honest, if we hadn't been run that way, with what's happened in the recently, then we probably wouldn't come out of the other side of it as healthy as we have done. We don't speculate in terms of wages. The manager likes it a certain way. He likes parity in the dressing room. Had a conversation with an agent this morning saying, well, can't you go to this? I said, no, that is our ceiling. It doesn't matter who. Well, yeah, but for a strike, I'm sure you'll break that. No, we won't. And I know we lose players on that. And that's fine. Like, we constantly have conversations between the coaching staff and the recruitment team of, that's fine. If they're not prepared to accept that, we'll shake hands, wish them the best, and they'll go somewhere else. That's fine. We're not about to break our structure. We're not a boom and bust club. You know, not too long ago, before the current chairman was in place, the club was close to going to the wall, and that won't happen again. We're now in a great facility here in terms of the ground. We've got a new ground. The training ground's all right. You know, it could be better. Everything. There's always, as I said before, about you always want a little bit more. Of course you do, but you have to balance that off between the infrastructure and Guy talked about Leicester having a new training ground. Well, of course they can. The Premier League's another sport compared to where we are in realism. Yeah, we'd love a brand new state-of-the-art training facility, but if that meant us getting 4 or 5 players in for the season to keep us in the Championship, we know which way we're going to go. It's a little bit more about now.
Rob, do you think, you know, with you getting out of League One was a massive thing, and do you think that the salary cap that's coming into League One might in effect help you, because some of those players that maybe go to Sunderland or Peterboroughs of this world, you might be in the market for them, whereas before they would be able to outpay you probably?
Yes and no. I think what we'll find is, if the salary cap comes in, you'll find players regionalised, purely because if the budget is 2.5 million, let's say, for a squad of 20 players in League One, why would you then try and get a player from London to come up here, where in you know, within that budget you've got to pay for relocation included in that 2.5 grand effectively for a player a week, if you've got 20 players on that budget.
Yep.
So if that's the case, you've got to take everything into account. Relocation, you've got to take into account agents' fees, you've got to take into account bonuses. So why would you in effect say to the player, right, we'll give you 1,800 quid a week and we're going to have to house you for the 2 years that you're here, when you go, well, we'll get someone from Manchester that'll travel and give them 2.5 grand a week, and they go, well, I'm not bothered, I'll just drive. So that's how I see it going. It's going to be a lot more regionalised, simply because why would you have an expenditure? Look, however anybody finds a loophole, and I'm sure somebody will, to get around it, which is the offset of having a salary cap. That may well happen, but we won't do that, and that will hamstring us to a certain degree. So, you know, I know the manager has blatantly said, you know, why would you go to a Sunderland, and why would you go to a Rotherham in League One? Why, as a manager, and various Peterboroughs and the other big clubs that will find themselves in League One, Portsmouth, when there's more pressure on you on a match day to get results than there is going to manage at an Accrington or a Rochdale, when you've got exactly the same budget, where you could get promoted from a League One club that's got exactly the same budget as a perceived bigger club, and then the manager's off and away to a Championship club that's got a lot bigger budget, because he's then looked at as a manager that's overachieved at a small club. In effect, you're not a small club because everyone's got the same budget.
Yeah. So I take it from that, Rob, that you're not a massive fan of the idea of the salary cap coming in.
Well, why I don't understand why they're looking at doing it when there's financial fair play already there. All it's got to be done is to police properly.
Exactly.
If the EFL and the FA or whoever it is that has the final say on it just polices it properly, it should be about income streams. So, why would you say to Sunderland or Portsmouth or whoever it is, you can only spend X when they've got Y coming through the door, which is probably quadruple, and no disrespect to these clubs, but a Rochdale or an Accrington, I keep using them, but they're probably two of the smaller clubs in League One in terms of their current budgets. How can you honestly say that a business is what it is? You're only allowed to spend that when their income streams obviously a lot bigger. In the commercial world, you can't do it. You can't go to Microsoft and to Apple and say, oh, well, actually, you're only allowed to spend that on your research and development because that's where we are. And they'll go, well, no, we've got X amount coming in. We want to throw as much money as we want at it to create the next product. Absolutely. So I don't agree with the salary cap wholeheartedly. I think there's elements of it that are good, but in League One, the disparity between the Championship at 15 million and League One at 2.5 million is huge. It's ridiculous. So what you'll find, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, and not the clubs, because I think the clubs is slightly different, is that you will only get, from how I understand it, the Championship clubs that get players on their contracts now, they're exempt when they get relegated. So, anybody that we sign before the salary cap comes into play is effectively, if you're in League One, is a £2.5 player, whether they be on 10 grand or 15 grand. That player is looked at because they were signed for the entirety of their contract. They were signed before the salary cap comes in. So, in my opinion, you'll have Championship clubs that get relegated with players on 7, 8, 9, 10 grand a week. They might have 15 out of 20 of their squad on that sort of money. You haven't got to be a rocket scientist to know that they're going to be at the top of League One with that budget. Yeah. So you're going to find 3 clubs coming down. Probably every year, at least 2 of those 3 clubs will go back up again. Yeah. So it becomes harder for the other clubs that are in League One to actually get out of that league. And if you are a bigger club like a Portsmouth or a Sunderland, and if you haven't done your business before a salary cap comes in, i.e., which I don't think they were, they're not naive enough to not do that. I already know other clubs. I've spoken to clubs in League One that are going, we're trying to do as much business as we can now on decent contracts before any salary cap comes in. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of the opposite of what they were
designed to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're pushing on an open door here. I totally share the sentiments, and I'm passionate that it's a terrible thing for our industry.
I get why they're doing it, though, Ryan. I understand why they're doing it, because a lot of clubs have found themselves in a situation from COVID that has left them on the brink. But we don't work that way anyway. So I'm only speaking from our perspective, which is we run as a solvent business. So yeah, we might lose players over it, but we'll get ones that fit our budget. If that's not good enough on the field, at least we know that the club's going to be here next season.
Absolutely. I'm keen to move it on because we've not got much time. Rotherham have been punching above their weight. If you look at the points per game versus wages for not just the last sort of 18 months, if you like, it's been a sort of 2, 3, 4 year really successful period for the club, and unbelievable achievement last season to get promoted. I know that you talk about having that sort of stringent financial structure in terms of the recruitment, but what we've seen out of Rotherham as well is a real openness to communicate what it is you want, what type of players you want. So what is it about the recruitment process on the non-financial side at Rotherham that means you're getting it right more of the time with players?
We have to get it right. We can't afford not to, really. That's the real pressure that we have. I think we have an identity. That identity's always been here from when I played here as a football club. I think the best way that I can probably convey what it is I feel that when I was a kid growing up, the football club represented the place that it was situated in. The way that they played, the type of players that they had was relative to the areas that they were brought up in. And, you go back to the 70s and the 80s and you look at Leeds, they were the tough, tackling, dirty Leeds. And then you went to look at they'd play a Chelsea or a Spurs or a West Ham, and it was all pretty football, tippy-tappy. And that kind of was an influence on the culture of where they were coming from. and that hasn't changed here. It isn't. It's a tough town. It's like, it's steel works and various other industrial businesses that are around the town. People that come and watch the football club, you can be, almost as if we're still in the 80s. It is. They work hard Monday to Friday. They want to come on a Saturday and see people on the football pitch putting in an effort, working hard like they do Monday to Friday, and they want to get something back for their money that they're paying for that. And that hasn't changed really. All right, you have to sort of evolve a little bit. You can't just have 11 players on the pitch that are tough, hard-working, aggressive players. You have to have a little bit of endeavour. You have to have a little bit of creativity within that. But once they come in, our remit is to find players that fit that mould. The manager has a very clear ethos of good people. He will not even entertain anybody that has had a misdemeanor in their past, whether that's right or wrong. That's his ethos. That's what he wants to do, and he says I cannot break that, because if if you were to sit in on some of his team meetings, they're very deep, emotional. He wants to connect with the players on a one-to-one basis, on a personal level. He's a new breed of manager. I don't think he ever chose that profession. He found himself in it, and he hasn't changed. I think football managing can change people. You become a bit hardened, and you have a different exterior when you're dealing with footballers and press and everything else. He hasn't changed. He is who he is. And he has lads round at Christmas because they were on their own, and he had them, invited them round to his house Christmas Day. He'll take the time to pick up the phone and speak to a player. I know players will speak to him on a personal level about issues they have at home, because he's approachable. So he's very much, in terms of the person, he wants to get the right people in. Obviously, we have to have them fit the mould. When I walked into the football club, it was about creating profiles in every position, what they were looking for, and consultation with the coaching staff. What do you want for that position, and how do you want that player to play? So my recruitment department now know for every position, they're the main attributes that we're looking for. All right, there's always a bit of an anomaly along the line, but the biggest thing is knowing what the coaching staff and the manager, most importantly, want. Secondly, they've got to fit the budget. And thirdly, it's up to the recruitment department then to know exactly. There's no point my guys going out and saying, I found this player. Okay, great. Who is it? Well, he's a tricky little central midfielder that doesn't really track back, but he's a small stature, but he's great on the ball. He's going to, and I'll be like, it doesn't fit. Yeah, all right. It might be a good player, but he's not a good player for us.
Of course, yeah.
There's a lot of good players out there, but I would say 80% of them wouldn't fit Rotherham. It's hard here. It is very, very hard. The way we train, it's full tilt every single day. And unless players buy into that, they'll find it doubly hard. So, but what I would say, players that do come in here get better as people and as players, because first and foremost, they enjoy it. And if they enjoy it, they invest into it. And once they've invested into it, they get better. So, we're happy to be a selling club. I think people use the term stepping stone, and other clubs may be offended by that. I like that, because that means players want to come here and get better. And if the chairman sees me bringing young players in and selling them on, he's happy with that. And it gets difficult for me, because then I've got to then replace them. So, that's my job.
Rob, are you looking mainly in England and Scotland, and in some of the, the sort of under 23s? Obviously, guys in control of the 23s don't put the loan situation. Is that something just England and Scotland based? Really?
It wasn't. When I came in sort of 15 months ago, it was. I wanted to change that. I want to look at Europe, but specifically countries that probably have the attributes that we look for. So Scandinavia, Germany, Poland, the Czech Republic, sort of players that know that are sort of no frills really. People said to me about Spanish players, Portuguese players. Yeah, there's some very good players out there, but would they come in and play the same style that we play? Probably not. So it's a bit of a lost cause. Obviously, COVID came in, and that sort of put a hold on that in this particular window. We also need to get the infrastructure right at the football club to be able to accommodate foreign players. We can't just get them in the door and say, right, brilliant, you signed off your trot, go and get yourself a house and find your family, kids at school, etc., etc. We haven't got player liaison staff. We run with a very small staff, so that probably comes under the recruitment remit. So we have to get that right. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So at the moment, we're looking anywhere where we think there's good players that will fit what we can get and fit the budget. So under 23s, yeah, a little bit different last year in terms of we could take a punt maybe on a player out of an under 23 squad that was maybe released or had a sell on, because League One is a little bit more forgiving in terms of the qualities. And again, no disrespect to League One, we know what it is. But in the Championship, we can't afford to say, look, there's a 22-year-old, not really played, but got good potential.
Yeah.
We can't afford to wait for the potential to be proven. We've got to get players in now that have Championship experience or that league equivalent, so they can come in and hit the ground running. So, yeah, we look everywhere and anywhere really in terms of the first question.
Right.
But it's getting harder because when you're a Championship club, the money goes silly. Foreign clubs think because you're a Championship club, you're one step away from the Premier League. They must be spending loads of money, but we never do. So whether we're Championship or League One, we have to be frugal.
Rob, we've only got a little bit amount of time left in this section, so I'm really keen to just try and some really interesting points there. I really subscribe to this notion that players are coming into a very sort of defined, specific reason into Rotherham. But where's the balance in terms of you think you're recruiting players that are sort of at their maximum when they get there, and versus what type of percentage gap do you think that these players have to improve? Because as you mentioned, you are a selling club and a successful selling club. And players have come into you, and I've looked at players that have come into you and thought, yeah, he's on his way down, and actually no, he's come back up and gone again. Is that just recruiting the right people to play in the right formations and how you play, or is it a combination of that and the work that Paul's doing as well?
It's probably a lot of things. It's risk over reward. I think I alluded to the fact that in the Championship, we've got to look for the reward more than the risk at the moment. So, the way that I can probably quantify that is that last year we were probably looking at younger players that we could develop and sell on, that had a potential sell on those. This year, maybe, it's bringing a bit more experience in that will supplement the younger ones that we've already got and make them better. So we've still got the ability to move players on in terms of clubs coming in for them. Better players, when you play with better players, makes you a better player. So the young lads that we've already got, that they've already shown that they can do the stuff in League One, their challenge now is to try and carry that on into the Championship. If we can bring 4 or 5 better players in, that will improve them. It makes them look even better. So we've still got the element of players to be able to sell on, and how that works, that I see it anyway, is if we've got 3 or 4 young lads that have the potential to move on, supplemented by better players in terms of experience wise, if 2 of those go, we'll replace those with 2 younger ones rather than more experienced ones. So that's how we've got to look at it. We've always got one eye looking at where we might finish the season. We don't want to stockpile with Championship experience and then find ourselves in League One. And I'm not being, really sort of downcast and think, oh, we're going to get relegated, because, I think we'll give it a real good go. But we plan a year ahead. We have to look at where we are financially in a year's time. So if we lose a couple of young players, we'll have to replace them. And will they be with experience? Probably not. We'll probably replace like for like. So it is a lot of the work that Paul does with them. The young lads come in here and they've been written off by many others.
Guy and Joe, I'm just going to give you a chance to ask a very quick question each. Guy, if you got a question there for Rob?
No, just reiterating what Scotty said. There was a great clip on online on Twitter, on the Rotherham website, Rotherham Twitter feed the other day about Mattock and Wilms. Wilms is a midfielder and Mattock the left back, seasoned left back. Now, Mattock was a an up and coming star of Leicester City.
Yeah.
Made loads of mistakes whilst he was here as a player on and off the pitch. Probably kind of washed up when he went to Rotherham from Sheffield Wednesday, and turned his career around since he's been there because of the guidance from these guys. But the clip was him talking about Wilms being around him, being his big brother, playing golf together, playing FIFA, you know, and managing that within the dressing room. And as much as they sign good players, because they do, which Rob goes ahead and does, they also sign good people. So within the dressing room, if you've got them types managing the younger types, you kind of come through a bit better. Even if you're a better player, you come through a better person.
Yep.
And I went to Rotherham and I bumped into Scotty and I bumped into Warney and I bumped into them sorts of people, and they've ruined my career. But no, I'm only joking, obviously. But they made me a better person. And if you can get that as a kid within the dressing room, where you've got an older statesman within the dressing room and they're telling you the right things, it's massive for the young lads. And it becomes easier to replace the young lads because you've already got another young lad seeing what that young lad's doing to knock around with that older lad. And that becomes a conveyor belt of players, in my opinion. And I think that's what Scotty and the fellas are trying to do at Rotherham. So it's a great thing they're doing. And you can see that it's going to be a production line for many years to come. So well done, fellas.
Yeah, nice one. And Joe, how useful is it for an agent to have just, I guess, just real clarity on what they're trying to achieve at a club and having that, you know, real sort of specific, you know, vision of what each position looks like?
Yeah, I think it just makes it easier for you, because as an agent, I was taught a very long time ago by Dan Ashworth, actually, when I worked with Athol Still and we were doing the Roberto Di Matteo deal, that don't ever approach me with a list of players. You must know exactly what the player does, what he gives, how we play, how the club is. And like Rob's saying, that the club, I think every club needs to know what they are and how they want to play and how the manager is, whether that's a club that changes on every manager or whether it's the way the club plays throughout, so the manager or the head coach can change. It just makes your job a lot easier, because we're scouts ourselves as agents. You know, we're trying to find the right players for the right club, because we don't want to embarrass ourselves by putting in players that, so the next time they don't even bother pick up the phone. You know, it's important to make sure they might not take the player. It might just not be for them, but it's got to be on the right sort of track. So by the club allowing you to understand exactly what they're looking for, you can get as close as possible. The final decision is with them of what they want to do. It's always trying to find that needle in the haystack, but it just makes it a whole lot easier than just throwing players here, there, and everywhere. So
absolutely.
Can I just say, sorry, Ryan, I don't know if I've got a minute just to sort of back up what Joe said, but when I came in here, we were getting agents ringing, as you do. And again, still now on text and WhatsApp, what are your requirements? So I got to the point of being sort of what Joe just said there, of I would be sending out positions that we need, and I'd get loads and loads of responses of, what about this player? And they don't anywhere near fit what we're looking for. But that's time consuming to then go through those. I'm a bit anal about having a process. I'm very process driven and looking, don't want to miss anything. So, you know, we'd look at all these players and realize quite quickly that a lot of them weren't what we were looking for. So we put together, I'm probably giving away some trade secrets here, but recruitment's about sharing. I know a lot of clubs want to keep it close and don't want to share anything, but for us, you know, we put together a video of clips about how we play. This is our style of play. So a short couple of minutes, this is our style of play from back to front. And then we broke it down into departments. So goalkeeper, defensive, midfielders, wingers, centre forwards. These are how we see the players playing. And they were clips of our current squad. So we're kind of saying to the agent, look, if you want to take the time to watch that video, which is 12 minutes long, great, because that stops you from wasting your time and then ringing me and I'm going, look, they're not what we're looking for. Yeah. You watch that video and then you can cherry pick players out. You go, do you know what? I think he's a really good fit. And this is no disrespect to UK agents, but the European agents are massively on board with that. Yeah. They're all over it. They love it because they go, oh yeah, you know, and I don't know why that is. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't air it on here, but the UK agents sometimes are just keen to get their players placed at clubs. And I'm not saying all those by any stretch. The smaller companies, the individual agents are more inclined to do what's right for that player and get them in a club that fits them, where they're going to get an opportunity to showcase. the bigger agencies sometimes just want to place players. Again, that's not a sweeping statement. That's just what I've found recently. So we do a video, send it out. I still get agents ringing me back going, what about this player? And I'm like, you've obviously not watched it. You've obviously not looked at it and not taken the time to invest in the players for their betterment. It's for them is why we're doing it, because otherwise you're going to place a player at this football club who's never going to play.
Yeah,
which would never happen because we wouldn't take him in the first place. But
fantastic. That's great insight, and amazing to just hear a little bit about what's happening at Rotherham. So absolutely fantastic. Guys, we're going to move on. I'm going to bring in Lee Hemmings from Player Lens. So hopefully the tech works seamlessly, and it has done. I was never worried. Lee, how are you?
Well, yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. You win the trophy of best background.
Thank you.
Guy was winning with his fridge, but you've took it. Yeah, you took it.
Give me the background. So here we are.
Excellent. So for those tuning in, as always, we've got a number of partners that we work with at the Football Transfer Forum, and we're very much looking forward to seeing everybody physically, hopefully before the end of the year. But great to be able to speak to these guys on an individual basis in these warm-up sessions. It's really interested for us to learn a little bit more about Player Lens. So let me just get the slide back up for us. Here we go. So, Lee, talk to us about Player Lens.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me on. We want to quickly introduce Player Lens, and I know we're going to go into it in a bit more depth at some later stage. But in short, we are a online platform that connects players, clubs, and intermediaries to initiate transfers in the transfer market. We've been going since around 2015. In 2015, things were different then. I don't know if you remember, we had the emergency window in England, which meant we didn't really have transfer windows, and we were obviously busy, for most of the year. And I think Player Lens was his busiest on a Saturday night, when a team would have a bad result and think, geez, can I get that half in for next week? And we'd fill that gap. But we've moved on from there, and we're now an international platform. We're dealing with about 600 clubs globally. Since we've invited agents onto the platform, we've had 30 agents sign up, bringing a number of players. And we've got the ability for players themselves to sign up as well when they're free agents. And we've got about 100 players on the platform at the moment.
Fantastic. And so, obviously, you've crossed over in terms of operating with different people. But just talk to us a bit more about what the real offering is to clubs.
Okay, so to clubs it's twofold really. They can do one of two things. They can look for players that they're looking to recruit, and they can place players in the market. And what we do is we have a number of tools that they can do in there to filter the type of player they're looking for, or search in certain markets. So it's about trying to find that right player, or trying to place the right player in the right place, rather than throwing it out there. I think if you look at what's happening this summer particularly, we're finding that a lot of these clubs are looking to get players out. I think if we look at the news in the last 24 hours, the Alexis Sanchez situation, where clubs like Manchester United are like, look, we've got to get him off the wage bill. We're seeing that from plenty of clubs from top to bottom, from the big clubs in the Premier League all the way down to the smaller clubs that are looking to find room to bring in another player somehow. And that's a trend we're definitely seeing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And obviously, I guess one of the unique things about you guys as well is it's not just club to club. It's obviously agents as well. How do you manage that balance?
Yeah, sure. So I think that when we brought agents onto the platform, what we were doing is we were moving players, and obviously the agent was aware of it. And first of all, they'd be a little bit concerned whether we were trying to step on their toes. But then after a discussion, they realised that all we were trying to do was provide a network for communication. And an agent would come back to us and say, oh, look, you've just moved this player. How about moving this player for me? Or can you help me with this player? So we brought them onto the platform as well. and it's worked well. The one thing we do say is that, you know, if they're working with a club, we make sure that the club are aware that an agent is pushing their player. So, you know, we don't work with agents behind clubs' back. We are about being transparent in the market.
Absolutely. And players, you know, my understanding, players can sign up themselves independently as well, whether they've got an agent or not.
Yeah, good example here. I think we've got a picture of Adi Cisse on our screens. He was the Leicester under-23 captain. We've actually moved him twice in his career. I think we moved him once to Bulgaria, and now we've moved him out to Azerbaijan. So it's just, you know, it's unbelievable. You know, you've got a player there that really does want to travel the world as part of his footballing career. And
it sounds like it, yeah.
If you find anything, you know, if there's anything interested in the platform, I'd be more than keen to find out. So, you know, he's travelled the world, and we've helped him with those 2 moves. This is really predominant at the moment with players getting, you know, there's more unemployed football players this summer than I think there ever has been. Yesterday, we signed a deal with VDV, the German Player Association. So it's allowing all their players to come onto the platform for us to try and find them some work. So, look, it's going to be a challenge this summer. You know, there are more players than there are potentially clubs or spaces for them to go. And we're not trying to fool anyone that we can promise to do anything, but we are just bringing that extra optionality to players. Look, and you can choose to go to Azerbaijan if you want. And, you know, Ali's enjoying it.
No, I mean, it sounds, and is that the trend that you're seeing? Are you seeing more players independently coming to you, maybe because they've been let go or they haven't been able to find clubs yet?
Yeah, that's a trend. So it's, you know, it's been, you know, what's important for us is that we want to deal with players who have a professional career. So if we look at the pool of talent that's on the platform, we want to make sure that they are real professional players, and we're not there to sell dreams. So the players that are coming on, obviously working with the German Players Association, that's great because we know they're professional players. It's also good when clubs release players and they send them our way. That's where we can help out as well.
Yeah, and as we can see there on the screen there, who does that? Who gets the data and the analytics and the clips uploaded? Is that the player themselves? You know, who has access into doing those bits?
So what we have is when we present a player, we work with a company called Transfer Lab that provide us some analytics. We bring in data and videos from MyScout. So we're not trying to be that company. We're not trying to copy what they do. But immediately on the platform, then a club can actually see a little bit about a player. They can see his career history. They can see how he plays. And they can sort of dismiss or like the player straight away and decide if they do any extra work. And this information is available to anyone on the platform. So if an agent signs up, he can get this information for his player. If the player signs up, he can get this information himself. So even if we don't find him a club, it's a useful tool for him to actually showcase his talent to anyone else who might be interested, because the player and the agent might not necessarily have this.
And in terms of clubs using it, Lee, is it clubs either, you know, putting players that are on their transfer list onto there, or are they making it known on your platform as well, the type of players and positions that they're after as well?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. So, like I said, at the moment, you know, I'm not going to kid anyone. There's a heavy skew to getting players out into the market. But obviously, you know, the success of the platform is when clubs recruit players and search for players. You know, they can filter by position, most importantly, the affordability and the economics of a transfer. And they can find a list of targets which they'd hopefully be interested in. So it's a combination of both, but there is a heavy skew to available players this summer.
And obviously, a bit more example there of the type of data that you that you produce on there. Just remind people, how many players have you got on the system at the moment?
There's about 900 at the moment.
Wow!
And
from all parts of the world, I imagine.
All parts of the world, all different standards. So you know, we've got Champions League club making players available, all the way down through the pyramid. And I think if we didn't deal with the whole pyramid, then it wouldn't necessarily work, because it's about moving people between different levels, which is important.
And in terms of, I guess, like the sort of, you know, my girlfriend wants to move house now, so we're going through this filtering system that is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think in County Durham there's a sort of south-facing house with a certain type of brickwork. It's madness. What level of detail can clubs, filter by? Going back to kind of, I guess, Rob's point really, in terms of they've got a real sort of specific and clear vision on the type of players that they want per position.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we'd start with the position. Then we'd obviously start with the affordability.
Yep.
Then we can bring in any of the biographical details. Some people really do care about the height or the build of the player.
Yeah.
And then we've got a filter which looks at the profile of the player and where he's best suited. So if we're looking for a fullback, we'll look at his attributes of whether he's an attacking fullback or a defending fullback, and they can filter based on those attributes to find the perfect player or the suitable players. Like I said, it narrows down a very big list, which is great. But we do expect clubs to go and do their homework separately. That said, that's been hard to do in this current environment. So the tools have been more and more useful. The videos have been more useful. So I think people have found the tools more useful than before when they'd do a lot more live scouting.
Absolutely. And I think for everybody else out there, and I'm going to bring you in now, Tony, there's going to be another session with Lee, isn't there, very, very soon?
Yeah, for everyone who's tuning in today, we're going to do an extended session this time next week. So at 10:30 kick off, about half an hour, and you'll be able to ask Lee more questions. We can probe into the Player Lens platform in a little bit more depth. So, and you'll get a notification through our Zoom and Eventbrite platforms about that. And we've got a good group already earmarked for next Thursday.
Great. But one final one to you, Lee, before you go. In terms of anybody listening that's like, yeah, that sounds absolutely great. How do they access it? What's the process?
Yeah, we do have a personal touch to this, so my contact details are there. We're happy to talk people through it. If they want to send me an email or drop me a line, then we'd be more than happy to speak more about it. Great
stuff, and I'll just leave those details on the screen for 30 seconds more or so. But Lee, thanks very much for your time today. Real good luck with it. I think it's another great tool for clubs, for players, for agents. We speak about it a lot. It's we're still trying to improve the efficiency of transfers, of the buying and selling of human beings at the end of the day, and I think this is another great tool for that. So thanks for coming on and sharing it today, and as Tony says, look forward to speaking in a bit more detail next week. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Lee.
Great stuff. Guy, there's so much stuff out there now, isn't there, in terms of, to help clubs understand players. How do you knit it all together at Leicester? Because there's obviously so many systems that do so many good things. What's the knitting process at Leicester?
Top down. Obviously, we go and discuss different things that come to us. I've opened up Player Lens a few times for various clubs I've worked for, but at the Premier League level, kind of a bit more discreet in what we do with the players and how we keep them in the squad, and obviously how we want to let them go out of the squad. Advertising them per se would be a bit different to our end, but there's definitely a place for something like that in regards to the size of the amount of players that's out there and people wanting to get in touch with them, and obviously clubs wanting to loan players out, which I've used it for in the past. So as a knitting together, we discuss in obviously our multidisciplinary teams, we discuss where we go with different technology that comes into the building. We use the platforms that are out there together. We log a lot of data together within the platforms that are already there, your Wisecat, Gene Stats, obviously the live streaming we do as well of the games. And obviously marry it all together when we need it, and bring it out when we need it in the meetings that we have, the discussions regarding the players' recruitment, players going out on loan, players coming into the building, players going out of the building. So meetings on meetings.
Very good. Okay, moving it on into the sort of panel discussion for today. Recruitment for promoted clubs. I think it's a really interesting discussion because we've seen, as I mentioned before, so many different strategies to what happens to the recruitment process when a club does get promoted. So, Rob, I've obviously got to come to you first. You are a promoted club. I want to ask you a question first. What's your observations on the different strategies of recruitment? Villa have gone in a very, very different direction to, say, some of the other promoted clubs into the Premier League. And again, we can use sort of similar examples into the Championship as well. Why is it, do you think, that we've got such a large amount of different strategies for when clubs are promoted?
I think it's probably got a lot to do with who runs the football club, who owns the football club, how they want to approach it. Obviously, a club like Villa are backed by some very wealthy investors, and they want to be in the Premiership and stay in the Premiership because they feel for their marketing strategies and for their income stream, they can't afford not to be. Other clubs, like Norwich, see it a little bit differently. They haven't got the pull of an Aston Villa in terms of their marketing and worldwide probably footprint that they could probably have. So they do it differently, and the Norwich risk is less because they're comfortable, a bit like us really, that if we were to come out of the current league that we were in, we're still sustainable in the league below. Okay, we want to get back up the ladder again. But I think if you look at Villa and without knowing what their P&L is and everything else that goes in terms of what their revenue streams are, I'm pretty sure that if they were to be relegated out of the Premier League, if they had been this year, they'd have been in big trouble. I think the last time it happened, they had to get back up. They had to go up. Otherwise, they were going to be, not only that, but financial fair play would have come into play. So it's a risk and reward. I talked about that in players. It's the same within how much you invest as a football club. Some chairmen have got billions of pounds to invest. You talk about Leicester. I think the money that they've got at their disposal. Same as with lots of other clubs. I mean, their owners want to throw money at it. Other owners haven't got as much as others, and they just want to run it as a business and a solvent business. And yet they still want results. So there's pressure on every level, but each club, I would say, is a standalone project, and whoever owns the football club will decide how much money they throw at it.
Absolutely. Joe, how do you observe it from your position as an agent? Obviously, you're speaking to lots of clubs, and I guess you're getting the sort of cold face of all those different strategies of people that are either on the verge of being promoted or have been promoted. What do you see as an effective strategy for promoted clubs? Because from my perspective, I always think, here's a team that's won a lot of games, that are winning a lot of games, obviously, that in order to get promoted. So it's not that broken, is it? So often when teams get ripped apart and changed, I think that's sometimes counterintuitive. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think Rob's spot on with each club, and each owner is very different. For me, the two examples are great with Aston Villa and Norwich. For me personally, I agree. I've never sort of seen a success story yet of a team that's brought in 6, 7, 8 players, and it's really worked. Not just for promotion, but just in a transfer window anyway. I think you upset the squad a little bit too much. I think with Aston Villa, they brought in a sporting director last year, and his remit was, we want to bring in players. I think the CEO said, we're safe. We can spend this money because if we go down, we can maybe sell Jack Grealish. That has obviously changed with COVID, the cost you can get for Grealish. Other people have criticised Norwich, but that for me is a more sustainable plan for Norwich. People forget where Norwich were when Stuart Webber and his team went into Norwich with a huge black hole, players who probably were on Premier League wages but didn't want to play like a Premier League player or actually be there. So the work that's been done to get Norwich into a safer place, a better place, and then to be promoted, yes, maybe they could have spent a little bit more money, but would they have done what Aston Villa have done? No. And I think Villa can like you said, if Aston Villa, they need to send a bottle of champagne and some roses to VAR, because let's not forget, when the goalkeeper was having a sandwich in the back of the goal against Sheffield United on the first game back, if Villa lost that game, they may have went on a terrible run and been relegated, and it would have been a catastrophe, especially with COVID, because no one's be paying 75 million for Jack Grealish. Well, maybe I stand to see if that happens, but so yeah, there's different. I think it's better for a club like Rob's saying, to have a more sustainable club, to build yourself, build your infrastructure, do it on a steady way as well. So you're always going to have those owners who want to spend lots of money, like Chelsea are at the moment. But yeah, I think it's better to bring a few players in and build up from there, really.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Guy, what's your thoughts? For promoted clubs, how many is too many new players?
Going back to when I was a player, I think that there's a sense of right within the dressing room to have a go at that level as a group of players. So I think if the club overdo it with spending and an accumulation of new players coming in the dressing room, there'll always be a group of lads that are like, who are these guys? So you've always got to worry about the dressing room dynamics. But I think football clubs have a sense of pressure as well from various different departments. Directors getting excited. Scotty, me myself, when I was head of recruitment, you're getting peppered from various different staff members about signing. Who's got to be the first signing? The signing's got to be a striker first to get the fans excited for season tickets. Blah blah blah. You're listening to all these different noises and white noises and listening to them for ages, going on about this, that, and the other. And you've just got to be strong with what your club's identity. You've got to be strong with that, because you can't be listening to too much of it, because if you're following your club's identity, you want the club to be sustainable, like Scotty said, with particularly Rotherham. Leicester, I don't particularly think throw money at it. I think they're very, very particular in what they do in their business. It's a difficult market to be in at Leicester City, where they're up against the surrounding area, but also the top five. We're looking to push into that group. We have done, say, this season. We should have probably got a bit higher because the form was a bit of a dip. But it's difficult because every player you kind of quoted now is 100 million.
Yeah.
You talk about Jack Grealish and people like that. If he's coming, if he isn't coming, 100 million. 80 million, 120 million.
Yeah.
And the value in the Premier League market is you've got to look abroad. And so bringing a load of players into a dressing room, I'd be against it as a player. As a member of staff, trying to get the right fit for the football club would be my most important. And I'd definitely look to players of that ilk.
Yeah. Rob, when did you start preparing for what your recruitment strategy would be if you were to be promoted? And how many new players do you think you guys will bring in this season?
Well, we started as soon as last summer closed, so probably working sort of 2 windows in advance, really. The problem that we had was we have to sort of have 2 lists, one for the League One if we were to stay in that league, and one for the Championship. So kind of working on 2 fronts, really. Last summer we brought in 12, which isn't ideal, but it comes down to the fact that we were in the Championship. Lads would come into the end of their contracts and we couldn't renegotiate at a level that they felt was where they were at, having been a Championship player. So we lost players, which is a natural churn anyway. I think you have to refresh every so often. So we brought in 12 last summer. Not all of them worked straight off the bat, but we are fortunate, and I think we limit obviously risk, as I said before, by trying to bring in the right people. This summer, again, we'll probably have quite a little bit of a churn because we had 4 loans last year, so you've got to replace them. We had a couple out of contract. We had League One lads that probably you're thinking, can they do it in the Championship? Not so sure. So 9, I would say, 9 or 10 that we'll have to bring in again this summer. So it's never a quiet window here.
Yeah. How do you make the determination on a player that was good enough to get you promoted, that was part of that team, that perhaps played a lot of your first team games, was good enough to get you in those automatic promotion spots, but you're assessing him and saying he's not going to be good enough for us to compete in the Championship? What triggers do you use to make that judgment?
Can we get better?
Right.
Realistically, our strapline this summer is we're only bringing in players in that we perceive to be better. And that's the only way that they like. We weren't going to bring anybody in underneath what we already had. We had to bring in people that were probably going to be better than we thought we could get last year because we were a League One club. So now we're a Championship club. Doors open a little bit more. People are a bit more receptive to talking to you.
Yeah.
Premier League 2 players are more receptive to wanting to come to a Championship club. The parent clubs are more open to it. So realistically, it's not whether the players are not good enough, it's whether we can get better players. Because the ones that we say were here and got us promoted, they if they're still contracted, they'll probably be at the football club. But my job is to try and put players in front of the manager that I think make us better within the framework of everything that he wants.
Absolutely. Tony, how much do we sort of undervalue the Championship as a draw, both domestically and for foreign players? I know you do a lot of work, on the continent as well. If you're pitching a club at a League One or a Championship, the Championship, it's the 5th biggest league in Europe, isn't it, by attendances and TV rights and all this type of stuff. It is a massive pull, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the Championship is, we all know it's a massive league anyway. Some of the clubs in there, obviously Leeds United have just got up, West Brom have just got up, Fulham have just got up. You could sort of say it's a Premier League 2, really. There's some really, really, you look at all the clubs in the history, Forest, I could go on and on and on. And explaining, when I had a very short, brief career, but if you made it now, if you make it in the Championship, you've done really well as a professional footballer. It's just so happens that the Premier League has been bolted on top of it, where it's a world-class league. So the young lads coming through Leicester and other clubs, it's so difficult to get on the pitch in the Premier League. But if you do get on the pitch in the Championship, you've obviously made it at a really, really high level. And when we look around Europe, their second divisions are nowhere near as strong as the Championship. They're not played at the same intensity. Rob touched on, he wants robust players who are, athletic, robust, strong players who can, play. And we look at Leeds and what they've done this season. You're playing a hell of a lot of games in the Championship, and every game is an absolute battle. So you need those guys. One thing I would say on the promoted club thing is, all those lads who have been promoted and from the National League all the way up to the Premier League, they're all going to have really nice bumps in the salary, aren't they? So the players are all going to they've had a successful season. Everyone's happy. Sometimes the wages have doubled or even trebled for the Premier League. I'm sure the players at Rotherham will have had a nice boost in their salaries. So they're all going to be happy. They're all going to be motivated. They're all going to be really, up for this next battle. And they've been a winning side, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know Joe spoke about Villa, and they did bring in a lot of players. 120 million and a point on the last day of the season. Was that 120 million well spent, or would that have happened anyway? Who knows? Who knows? But for me, I suppose, Rob's got a real task on his hands, because the clubs down there, yes, they are cutting budgets. Yes, there isn't going to be big transfer fees going around, and that brings them back into the pack a little bit more. But still, there'll be market moves there that you can't even touch, and almost some of the players dropping out of the Premier League coming into the Championship as
absolutely.
well. So it's such a competitive league.
Yeah. Well, one team that has obviously got the envious headache of dealing with recruitment through a promotion is Harrogate Town, and I'm very much hoping that we can speak to Lee Barraclough. Lee, are you there?
Morning, boys.
Good morning. Good morning.
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 Lee, how are you? Are the celebrations complete?
They're just about starting to die down now.
Oh, good.
It's been some time.
Listen, first of all, huge congratulations. First time in the Football League for the football club. But you can't say it hasn't been coming. Things have really clicked into place at Harrogate, I would say, on and off the field over the last 3 or 4 years. And Do you get that sense of that there was a bit of inevitability about it?
You're right in what you say. It's been building, but there's just the league was full of such big clubs with big budgets that we just knew that we had to be right at it if we're going to get anywhere near it. There's a stage this year where we were 18th and we dropped right off it, and we backed the lads and they dug deep and they turned it round, and then we climbed the table to where we thought we should have been after last year, and then things started to click into place and we went on a great run, and then the COVID struck, obviously, when we were just really starting to hunt Barrow down. I think we were 4 points behind with them to play on the Tuesday night at our place to take it to a point if we won. So it's all been a bit crazy, really. And getting them back in, doing the testing and getting playing again. And to beat Boreham Wood, who are a very good side, and to get to Wembley to play Notts County, who such a big club in their own right,
club,
great squad, and then to turn up and do what we did on Sunday. It's just honestly, it's just dream world. So
fantastic. So look, as the chief scout of a newly promoted club into the Football League, what's your phone been like this past week since the promotion?
It's been absolutely crazy. I mean, when we got promoted from the National North to the National League, it opened new doors and it was busy. But this has just been absolutely bonkers, to be honest.
So I want to ask you a very specific question. Again, I want to ask you this sort of similar question. You're a team that is used to winning games. You've got a successful winning team. I don't think there's much between the top of the National League and the vast majority of League Two. You've got this sort of slight added change in that you're going from playing on an artificial pitch to going to play at Doncaster Rovers' ground. Would you be as the fact that you're changing surface as that changed your recruitment strategy?
No. I mean, there's been a bit of a myth that we, as a side, we couldn't play on the grass. When we're second in the league with one of the best away records in the division.
Yeah, they're not all that bother.
No, for people to say, well, you're a bit of a one-trick pony on the artificial surface.
Is it still grass at Wembley, Lee?
I say Wembley's got a lot of grass.
It has, but
hybrid. It's hybrid.
It's hybrid. It's got 10%.
Oh well, it's
artificial sodding.
I give you that.
Yeah, we factored that in. Yeah.
So what's the plan then, Lee? For do you think we'll see a lot of players coming into Harrogate? Have you identified the sort of the areas where you feel like you want to change?
No, we've never ripped it up in the 5 years I've been here. So we've got great belief in the lads that we've got.
Yeah,
we'll add 3 or 4 to it most likely. That we started looking in January. As the guys have already said, we had 2 lists, one for the National League, one for League Two.
Yeah.
I've already spoke to guys today trying to get some names off him. So
good luck with that. Good luck with that.
I know, but God loves a try, eh?
You've got to ask.
You've got to ask. Yeah, if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the raffle, do you?
No. Rob, I want to ask you. I wouldn't sort of patronise and say what's the advice for Harrogate, but what do you think some of the realities are of playing in the Football League versus the National League, or have those kind of differences dissipated in your opinion?
No, I think as long as you stick to your identity is the biggest thing, and obviously from what Lee's just said there, that they had 2 lists thinking about it already. Their philosophy hasn't changed in 5 years. Don't go away from what you are, because as soon as you start doing that, that's when things don't quite go to plan. If you throw all your philosophies out the window because you've gone up a level, then you're starting from square one, really. So if you have a good base, which we tend to do, and we just try to add to it and year on year try to improve, once you're in there, it's about staying in there and then consolidating. Maybe, I mean, a lot of clubs we did ourselves at Rotherham. We bounced from League Two to League One to the Championship. You get on that roll, you got that momentum. So there's a lot to be said for that. So it's about sticking to your principles, really. And I think knowing what your philosophy and remit is, and if you stay with that and add to that with better quality, then you got a good chance.
And Joe, obviously we've all been really impressed by what Harrogate have done. What changes do you see? I guess from players really when they're in the football league. Do you see a change in the players? I guess their sort of demands, their sort of outlook. Is there still something about being in the football league that's special?
I'm sure, yeah, of course, getting a promotion or being in the football league is going to be something to be proud of. But from my experience of players from years, they're all quite cocky anyway, So they deserve it. So I've seen a bit of their play this year as well. So good luck to them going forward. And there isn't a massive difference between those leagues anyway. So there won't have to be so many changes. Like I said before about the changes in the Premier League with the amount of players, like Rob said, in League One, League Two, you do need to make those changes. And sometimes it's just for contract reasons. So, good luck to you, Lee. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Yeah, cheers, buddy. Thank you.
And Guy, obviously, like to say, Lee's already been on. For a club like Harrogate, is that would there be a scenario where a player from a club in the Premier League would be that would be an attraction?
Yeah, definitely. We actually met the first event I ever went to with you guys. We actually met together, me and Lee, at the speed dating part. So that's where me and Lee had our first drink. He was dressed in all his kit and I knew exactly who he was. So I knew he worked for Harrogate and I was all smart, so he was a bit confused who I was. So it was funny enough, we were speaking literally a couple of weeks before the final, wasn't it, as well? You was getting your two lists together, which was great, and we were talking about various different players, and then my list has obviously narrowed as we go into the opening up of the pre-season. So I kind of know now who I can kind of loan out and where I can kind of what levels I can put them at. Understanding them levels and played in them levels, but also watch a lot of them levels. I don't believe there's a lot in it when you come from the conference to League Two. I think it becomes obviously harder as you go higher. Talking about budgets earlier, but I just think that you've got to get the right types in there. You've got to get the lads who want to play for Harrogate. The identity, the DNA of the club, where it's based. It's a fantastic area. It's a beautiful place up there. But as a player and as a recruiter of players for these sorts of types of clubs, we identify. We spoke about players yesterday, and that there'll be constant conversations as we go back over the next couple of weeks. And I see it as a massive plus they're in the league. I really do. If a Premier League side's loaning to probably the so-called non-league, which is a top league, but the non-league, then the players are kind of going to be miles away for the Premier League. We're trying to create Premier League players, unfortunately. It's Cap 1. The stats show that if you're loaning out players to the Championship, they've got something like a 65% chance of being a Premier League player as well.
Wow.
League 1 and League 2, it's I think something like 30% chance of being a Premier League player in the future, and the conference is obviously a lot less. So we're kind of loaning out players that we're looking to either exit or looking to sell on or looking to move on after they've had their time with Leicester City. So it's a difficult situation, but there's definitely conversations to be had. And, I know the club well, and I know that the manager and the assistant manager, and obviously Lee now, and it's great to be around it. So I'm enjoying our conversations, Lee. Give me a call soon, Pat.
Good. And Lee, just for a bit of clarity, what's happened with the pitch? I was at the ground last year, and there was a talk about maybe putting a grass surface on top of the artificial surface. But am I right in thinking that the artificial surface is actually coming up?
No. So what they're doing, they're using the artificial pitch as a membrane, and they're going to lay straight on top of that. That started on Tuesday.
Fantastic. So
it's all systems go at the ground at the moment. Some new floodlights going in to get to the lux levels needed for League 2. And we're going to play the first few games at Doncaster, which most likely supporters won't be allowed in by then anyway. So it's a nice surface down there, so it'll suit how we play. And then we'll be back home, hopefully, and get the fans back in the ground, and away we go.
Yeah, good. Guy, did you have a question about lux level?
Just with the grass. I know it's a massive community club, and obviously where it's based near schools and various different people come and use the pitches. Has there been a disappointment they've got to take up the 4G in regards to finances because of the 7 day a week availability of it?
100%, and we use it as a training facility for the first team as well. But we do have another one at a local school where our academy, our PDC, will go and move to. But when you see them being used in the Champions League, and it was the same surface that Bayern Munich actually train on, so the surface was second to none. So it's a bit disappointing in this day and age that the community lose the use of it. The income's gone for the football club through hard times just to qualify for League Two. But, you've got to do what you've got to do. That was our objective. And
with the majority of players as well playing on 3G, 4G all the time now. Our academy's based with 3 or 4 pitches of 3G, 4G. They moan at us for asking to use a pitch, groundsman.
Exactly. And our injury record actually got a lot better once we put the artificial surface down. So, there is a little bit of a myth with that one as well about the injuries. But it'd be sad to see it go because it's really helped transform the club, with the community and the attendances and everything, really.
Very good. Well, Lee, we've got to move on, but congratulations
Thank you
again.
very much, guys.
I think Guy definitely offered you a player in that conversation there, so I think that's done. I think that's done. And definitely look forward to getting down to a game at Harrogate next season.
You're always welcome. You know that.
Thank you very much. Right. Good luck, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
Cheers, Lee.
Stuff. Right, we've got 10 minutes or so I'm going to flash through some questions here. First question from Simon Rowley. A question for you, Rob. Rob, do you still subscribe or prefer the old sort of school scouting techniques of going and watching with your eyes, or do you sort of adopt the more sort of Moneyball style technique, or is it a bit of a hybrid of both?
No, it's both. We used initially the sort of stats and the data to try and flag players up, especially the ones from further afield that we haven't got the footprint to go and watch. We're not blessed with a huge scouting department. We've got a decent enough number, but we're not able to get across to Europe on a regular basis. So, we use stats and data, but stats and data is very raw. You can have a player that's flagged up to you that's the best centre forward in the league, but like I said before, it doesn't play the style that you play. So until you actually go and see them, you don't know that. And obviously, once you go as well, you get to see attitudes of players, you get to see their demeanour, how environments impact their performances. So I think you got to do both really to get the. Otherwise, we'll all be sat in an office somewhere just looking at video games and stats and data, which I'm not a fan of as a standalone type of recruitment.
Absolutely. Question here from Adrian. I'm going to put it to Guy and Joe. You guys work inside clubs and with clubs. What extent do you feel the dynamic between scouts and agents has changed since the deregulation of agents in 2015? Joe, I'll come to you first. How do you feel the dynamic has changed between agents and scouts and clubs?
Yeah, I think fortunately enough, I've been involved for quite a long time, so I've built up good relationships over time with scouts, heads of recruitment, sporting directors, and so on. So I have those relationships already, but I do feel for them with the deregulation because there was always problems anyway with lots of agents maybe offering players that are totally unsuitable, but now you have everybody who can just get involved and try and pick up a phone and bother people like Rob, and it does take a lot of their time. So if you are a new agent, I wouldn't say to stop. If you're working hard and trying to get the right players, you've just got to take time to build those relationships. But it is hard for clubs. Like I said, fortunately for people like myself or Tony, we do have those relationships, so we're okay to carry those on and just keep building on them, really. So
good stuff. And Guy, how do you feel that relationship between club and agent has changed for you?
Pretty much what obviously Joe said there. There's so many people wanting to be involved in football anyway. with the deregulation, it just opened up the doors for all sorts of characters to be texting me and emailing me. And even I find a massive difference of thinking that when I went into being an agent, thinking that my relationships would constantly just get me in the door because of the massive influx of conversations these guys, my friends, were having. I was getting ignored, you know. Wasn't getting listened to because realistically, I'm just another salesman to them then, you know. And it's a disappointing. I was disappointed with the deregulation. I think that the testing would have been a hell of a lot better. Not to make it expensive, but you know, test the guys, test the people and ladies who want to come into it. Make sure that they're the right fit and the right person to be dealing with your child, your obviously club product, and making sure that you know they've got all the things in place. Because if you're going to be selling a product, any product, you've got to be an expert, or you ain't going to sell it. You know, you've got to be passionate about it, or you ain't going to sell it. And I think that some of these guys think that I'll just get my £500 badge and I'll be able to sell this or I'll be able to sell that, meaning players. It's just silly. You know, get your education in, get your basic education in, get your next level education and become an expert in the game, and then you will sell these products, obviously talking about players. But as a club point of view, you know, the people that contact me on various different social medias is unbelievable.
I can only imagine. Just to add to that, I think, you know, you speak to people and, you know, they find out you're an agent and it's the most exciting job in the world. And it can be a very, very good job, but there's many ups and downs, you know, unless you're maybe George Mendes, I'm sure there's lots of ups. So they're coming into it for the wrong reasons. I don't know about you, Guy or Tony, but, you know, for me coming into it, I was working with lots of kids in schools in London. I was coaching. And I literally fell into it. I didn't think I'd make millions and millions of pounds doing it. It was because I wanted to take a young boy, take him into an academy, help him develop there, hopefully him playing at England Youth International, and then go on to his club and become a first-team regular. That was my goal. It's very, very difficult when you do that because you're not making any money and people don't realise that. And it took me many years before I actually made my first big deal. I think it was 4 or 5 years, you know. So I'm having to do a second job, whereas other people now are just trying to jump into it because they think it's so easy, but they're causing quite a lot of problems. So the FA have to take a lot of responsibilities as well as FIFA. You know, I think clubs that see agents who have taken this examination, which isn't easy, see, well, at least they've put some effort into it. You know, they actually want to do it. So, yeah.
Rob, a lot of people asking where they can access the recruitment video. I think did you say it's on one of the social channels of Rotherham?
No, that one's not. I don't know if Tony uses WhatsApp, but I've WhatsApped it to him just now.
Well,
So,
I'll share it.
So maybe we share it on the LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is. But agents get it anyway because that's who we send it to. If people want to plagiarise, that's fine. You know where it came from first.
Well done. Thanks.
And a few of the similar questions to you, Rob, as well. Do you think Rotherham will be paying a transfer fee for any players this window?
Yeah, potentially. It won't be a big one. But yeah, I mean, again, would we pay? It's got to be the right. I keep using the term right person, but in terms of that, within that, age-wise and everything else. So. Yeah, I think we'll look to do that if the right player comes along. Yes, it won't be a huge one, but if the right player comes along and he's not on a free, then we'll ask the question. Yeah,
fantastic, guys. Time has been completed. I'd like to thank everybody for their time, especially Joe and Rob. Really interesting. Thank you so much, Rob. Thanks so much. Really good luck in this week, this season's transfer window. I think we're all feeling very positive about how Rotherham are going to go next season. Tony, I'll leave the last word as always to yourself.
Yeah, the next Football Transfer Forum webinar, we're still waiting for the live event. I haven't got a crystal ball for that, unfortunately. We're doing one of these webinars every Thursday, the first Thursday of the month. So it'll be Thursday, the 3rd of September. So if you guys have registered today, you'll automatically be registered for that one as well. Don't forget the Player Lens, a bit more in depth next week, next Thursday. And we've also got Squad Plus as well, which is on Friday, the 21st of August. Squad Plus is a really good tool that you'll find out a bit more on the next Squad Plus webinar. But yeah, I thought really pleased with the guys today. Fantastic, really grateful for sharing. You know, we're sort of going behind the curtain a little bit in the football world, in the recruitment world, and you know, I really thank you for that. I'm grateful.
Great stuff. Well, I hope everybody has a sort of good rest of the day and a good weekend. And thanks again for tuning in, guys. Thanks for your time coming on as well.
Thank you.
Cheers, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.